Hey DreamChasers, it's JC, and today I'm going to show you a really quick, easy way to draw sequins digitally. Now, if you were going to do this traditionally, you could sit here and stipple every single little circle to kind of get that sequins shiny effect. That would take forever though, and my sympathies to traditional artists who have that kind of dedication. However, digitally, there is a much faster way to go about doing that, and I'm going to show you how I created this look in just a couple of seconds, really. Starting with the woman on the right here. I'm going to remove this layer. I'm just going to kind of do it again. So this is all I did to create this effect. So you can lock this layer and work right on it. I kind of feel more comfortable working above it, so I'm just going to select that so that anything I draw doesn't appear outside of the selection. I'm going to select that color and then pick a version of that color that's a little bit darker. So I'm working in Photoshop first. I'm going to show you how to do it in here. And then I'm also going to show you in Clip Studio because it's a little bit different. But in Photoshop, you go to your brush settings. And if you have your tablet on, I don't know why mine's not showing pen pressure. There it is. You might have this on, pen pressure. I'm going to turn it off, so I'm going to uncheck shape dynamics. I'm going to go to brush tip shape here. So normally you would want no space when you're doing line work, so you have this smooth continuous line. But for what we're doing, we're going to increase the spacing so that when we draw a stroke, there's actually space between each one of these. And then if you want to get fancy, you can turn on scattering. So it basically will kind of randomize where those go. So instead of a line, we get kind of that effect. So we're going to use that to draw sequins. Of course, we're not going to just draw straight up and down because that would look kind of boring, right? So what we're going to do is use our darker color of sequins here to kind of act as our shading. We're going to kind of draw it around the shape of the character's body. So I'm going to come in here and sort of draw it where I think there might be some more shadows, kind of like under the curves of her tummy and around the edges of her body, and just kind of start to get a little bit of that. And that looks nice. And then I'm going to come in with a lighter color and kind of draw some highlight sequins. Oh, that is not light enough. Here, get like a white. There we go. So now what we're doing here is we're adding those where there might be highlights on the dress. So the things that are closer to us and like light is catching. So I'm coming in with these lighter sequins, and it's just kind of starting to create a sequence effect. Now, this isn't full enough though to really give us a sense of a sequins dress yet. There's a lot of sequins usually in a dress. So then what I'm doing, I'm going to kind of come in with a color that's a little darker than that, and I'm going to kind of go over everything. So we're kind of filling in more of the space, and so we have a little bit more of this sequence effect kind of filling in. And I'm just going to keep layering like that. So I'm actually going to try another highlight color just kind of along the edge, so we get like a little bit of like light catching on the side of her dress. Now it still looks darker in these spots because we have those really dark sequins that are kind of, you know, the majority of this over here, but it's still, it kind of just fills everything in. Gives you a little sense that there's some light catching over here, but it's obviously not as bright as this. And we can come in too and get like really bright on the places. So I have like white now, and that's kind of making that look a little bit brighter. The top of the thigh, and just kind of keep adding layers like that. I'm gonna come in a little bit darker, and you notice too, I'm not changing my brush size at all because I want these to look really uniform, like they're actually made of sequins. So every single little dot is about the same size because it's supposed to represent like an actual piece of sequins, which I guess is like a shiny plastic. I'm just gonna keep building. So I'm gonna grab this light pink color again and kind of fill it out a little bit more. and just keep building up everything until it starts to look kind of finished. And that's it. That was like a minute, couple minutes, I don't know how long, to make this have a sequins dress. And I'm gonna compare it to what I did before. Okay, so I used kind of different colors. I used some more pinks in that original one here. So I could do that here too. Get some more pink. Kind of have there be a little bit more depth to this. And then the cool thing too, because I made this a separate layer from the dress itself, I can also play around with the hue and saturation. So if I wanted it to be a little bit more gold or a little more pink or more saturated, more desaturated, kind of give it like a silvery look, you can kind of play around with that stuff sort of After Effects, make it much lighter, which is pretty. It kind of gives it like a pearlescent sort of vibe. Darker ends up looking a little weird, but you can kind of play around with it and just see what looks right. And then I did the same thing on the shoes. I just kind of gave a little sequence effect. Here it doesn't really look like sequins as much as shines, but I think it looks nice and it still works. It's funny though, because I think this passed through, the colors changed a lot. So I'm just gonna change the color of the shoes here a little bit too. Kind of make it match the dress a little bit more. And this is just the hue saturation slider. I'm just playing with that a little bit. And there you go. She's wearing a sequins dress now, which I think really just adds a lot to this character. It makes her look really glamorous, as where that looks nice, but it's a little bit boring. And then the same thing for this character. It's the same exact method, but what I did instead is all of this is done on one layer that's just a pattern. So this is what the pattern looked like. I just kind of drew that in with a hard brush and locked that layer. So I checked that little thing right there to lock it. And then the same thing. So I came in with kind of a darker color. And you notice there's some shading on the dress layer underneath, and I didn't shade anything on this pattern, which makes it look really like slapped on and stiff. But once we start adding those sequins, it kind of fixes that. So I'm coming in and I'm putting these darker color sequins over where some of that shading would be. So it's starting to kind of fill in the dress and make it look shaded. And I'm going to do the whole dress this time, but just so you can kind of get a sense. So then I'm going to come in with a lighter color, and I want it to be look a little gold. So I'm going to make it a little bit more yellow. So I have like this yellow building up on top of this brown color, and now it kind of has this sort of gold shimmery effect that I think is really neat. And same thing, you're just going to want to keep building up. You can get maybe not white for this one, but come in with that really light yellow. And if you wanted the sequins to kind of be smaller, you can just change your brush size. I wouldn't go much bigger than this because I think it would just look like polka dots and not sequins. And it's imperfect because like if you look here, some of these little sequins look like they're like cut by that, but I think it tricks the eye enough. When you zoom out, it looks fine. It just looks like a sequins pattern. So that's what the final one. You can tell I was using kind of maybe a little bit smaller of a brush there. I think both look fine though, to be honest. So yeah, that's how I did that. I'm gonna show you really quick in Clip Studio how to change your brush settings so you can get the sequins pattern, because it's a little bit different in Photoshop. So let's open up Clip Studio. All right, and then I'm just gonna show you again on this woman. So going back down here through my millions of layers. Here we go, dress, sequins. All right, so I'm going to select this again. So I just can hit Control and click down that to select that layer. It's the same thing in Photoshop. But if you wanted to instead, if you wanted to lock the layer, you would just click on this up here, this lock transparent pixel. And that just means that anything you draw outside of this wouldn't show up. All right, so I'm gonna hit Alt to eyedrop this color. I'm going to pick a darker version of the color. And all right, I have this G Pen tool up, and I just wanna go into this little wrench here is the settings. Under this brush size ink, I wanna go to stroke right here. And you can see right here, there's there's these gap settings. So I'm setting it here to fixed. And I'm going to just increase the gap. Now, I'll be honest, I don't know how to turn on scattering in this. If there is a way to do it, and someone knows, please let us know in the comments. But this effect works just fine. So we have the gap, and I'm just going to do the same thing. Actually, I think I want more of a gap, so I'm going to increase that. Let's see how that looks. That might be too much, somewhere kind of in between there. Yeah, okay. And I'm just going to draw my sequins. I think that brush size is a little small. I'm actually going to increase it. I'm hitting the bracket tool on my keyboard to increase the brush size. And it's not quite as random as I feel like it was in Photoshop, but it's doing the job, and I think that's cool. So yeah, that's how you do that in both Photoshop and Clip Studio. I would imagine, I haven't used a lot of other art programs. I would imagine any art program kind of worth its weight is going to have some way to do this and draw a dotted line. There's also, under these settings, I believe there's a dotted line brush as well. Texture, stroke. Here we go. Under brush shape, you can just pick a dotted line. Anyway, that's how you draw sequins or any kind of dotted texture digitally. I hope this was helpful, and until next time, chase your dreams. Thanks again for watching. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe for more art content, tutorials, occasional cameos of my dog Riley, and some other life stuff. I don't know, man. There's a lot on this channel. It's a rich, robust place. Also, thank you so much to my patrons for making videos like this possible. You guys are the best. By the way, if you're interested in a high-res download of the artwork, it's available to all of my patrons. And if you're interested in a layered Photoshop file of this piece, that's available to $10 patrons at the Visionary tier. So if that sounds cool to you, head over to patreon.com/jcchase.